those 10 children a little bit better. Well, I thank you all for coming out tonight. I wish I had the power to give indulgences or something. I mean, you deserve something for making it through that weather and traffic. It was like pitch black. I'm amazed that you're all here tonight. So again, thanks so much for coming out. You know, I've always said, God puts me in the strangest places I could ever imagine. You know, I co-founded a physical therapy corporation. I'm not a physical therapist. I ran a sports representation company. I'm not a lawyer. I ran a international sport manufacturing and health fitness kind of company. I'm not a business person either, you know. And so here I am at the Defend Life, you know, facility talk here, and I've been asked to talk about sport. I mean, you know, how do you even figure this out? You know, how God put you in places that He does. Jack asked me just to mention, and he mentioned a little bit, people have asked where are we with the lawsuit, with the HHS mandate. And as you know, it really is a story of David and Goliath, because I thought a whole bunch of people would jump in on this in the beginning, and it turns out we were the only ones. I mean, in the whole entire country. It floors me. This little tiny Benedictine college that, you know, hardly anybody knows about is the one that sues the federal government. You know, everybody else has billions of dollars, we got nothing, and we're the ones who sue the federal government. And it's been an incredible battle. I mean, I said it, you know, I testified before Congress. I will tell you all, not that it may require this, but I am serious. If we don't have the conviction that we're willing to die for what we believe, I am telling you right now, it's not going to go the way we want it to go. This is not going to change by some dialogue, or we're all going to cooperate, and like, I've seen it. This is not going to happen. We are either going to get a majority of people to vote in this direction, or we're not going to get it. I mean, that's what it's going to take. And so, you know, I'm speaking to the choir now, but we've got to go out and get the other 50 or 60 million people in this country who are thinking just like we are, and get them to focus on what it is that we need to do to change what's going on right now. There'll be nothing short of that to change where we are. So we've had this battle for religious freedom, and then I think another kind of bizarre thing happens to us. You know, our monastic community is led by Abbot Placid Solari, who is a brilliant individual, a wholly good monk and man, and the fruit of that you can see is that we are starting to get vocations again. We have 6 new novices, postulants that are now in the monastery. Brilliant people. They've come with PhDs, some from University of Dallas, I think one from Catholic University. I mean, just really good, solid guys. They're relatively young. I mean, usually monastic vocations sometimes come a little bit later, but these guys are relatively young. And so it's a wonderful thing that's happening. But one of the things we were approached to do was we were approached by a group at the time called Room at the Inn. And they were a maternity home, and we've always supported Room at the Inn, and they came to us and said, what we found is that the largest number of people aborting right now are college-age women, and we need to support that in some way. And they said, we'd like to build a facility, and we'd like to have a program that was geared towards college women to support them, because we were finding that college women felt either that they would be able to continue in school or the careers would be over or something, and so they would end up having the abortion rather than have that consequence. And so actually on our land is a facility that changed their name to Miravia, which is like Miraculous Way, but it's a home there for college-age women to come. I've given the permission that any woman that comes there from any college in the country can take courses for free at the college while they're there, and then they can transfer those back to whatever school they may be at. But it's a wonderful apostolate, and again, it's, you know, some people say, well, you're enabling things. I'm thinking, no, I don't think anybody's coming here to have like a room for a while, you know, and that's how they're going to go about doing it, you know. I think there's simpler ways to get a room if that's what you're looking for. But we've done this, and it's a really good work. And again, it's an odd thing that we would be the ones that would have this, you know, on our campus. And then here I am tonight, asked to talk about sport in some way. And you're thinking, wow, that's going to be a good segue. How's he going to pull that off? But I would say to you that probably the way I could describe it to you is that the truth and virtue that drives us our life issues is the same truth and virtue that is at the root of everything that we do. And I would make a strong argument that sport, which is what I'm about to get into here, is quite profound in terms of its influence on the entire world. And I'm going to make my case for that, I guess, now. I guess I'll start with that. I will start by saying, when I came in, Jack was a little panicked. He was already calling me, wondering where I was, because he had left me at like 5 to 7, and then I didn't get in here till 25 after, but I told him I was out in the parking lot because I pray the rosary with my family every night. So even if I'm traveling or I'm late at work, I call in on the speakerphone. So I was actually out there saying the rosary, so there was no danger of me not making it, but that's what I was doing, and that's where I was. And I'll start by saying that God uses the most inadequate instruments to accomplish His will, so there'll be no mistaking His will. And that's me. I mean, He puts me in places that people say it couldn't be Him. I mean, there got to be something else going on here. But here I am, and I've been given certain experiences and background, and so I'm here to share those with you as best I can. So I say, this thing about sport. I have found that, one, the profound influence of sport is remarkable. If you just look at it economically, politically, even religiously, all through history, it's remarkable. The amount of money that is connected to athletics, sport of some kind. Now, you might just be thinking of the teams or something. Think of all of the industries related to sport. It's hundreds of billions. It's like almost $1 trillion each year that sport generates. And I found basically two camps, for the most part. At least in Catholic circles, I found two camps. One of them is, at the one extreme, says, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff in this sport, and I don't like the coaches, cursing or doing this or that, or I don't like the people with no clothes on, running around the game. But, what are you going to do? That's just the way it is, and I guess we're just going to put up with that. Then you got the other far extreme that says, I'm just disgusted with the whole thing. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't even want to watch it. I don't want to be involved with it. And I'm telling you tonight that neither one of those is acceptable. We've got to take sport back and make it what it was meant to be. And we cannot accept that this is the way it is, and that we can't just either turn our backs on it, or we can't just participate in it. Because if we are, then we're actually contributing to the way that it is today. So I am going to begin by, not denigrating sport, because it's wonderful. It's fantastic, this thing called sport, which I'm going to describe to you in a moment. But unfortunately, pro sport has sort of become the poster child for vice. I mean, if you take the 7 deadly sins, pride, anger, lust, sloth, envy, gluttony, greed, they're all there. They're on full display. But I will tell you, I've worked with hundreds of professional athletes, especially NFL players. Unbelievably good people. These guys are great husbands, great fathers, devout Christians, whatever their faith. They're wonderful. You just don't ever hear about any of them. You go to ESPN website, 9 out of 10 stories are about the most dismal, terrible things you can imagine. And so after a while, it starts to permeate the whole culture, and it's not just in pro sport. It goes down to the college level. Now you see certain attitudes in college, and they look very much like professionals to a certain degree. And then you think, well, does it stop there? No, it goes down to high school, and then it goes all the way down to the youth level. When we first moved down to North Carolina, my son, Joseph, at the time was I think in 5th grade, and he was going to be on the basketball team. He wanted to play basketball. And we homeschooled, but he wanted to be on the team, and they said he could be on the team. Well, this school was so small that if you were a boy and you could breathe, you're on the basketball team. There was only 7 of them, And apparently they hadn't won a game in 5 years. So I go over, and I'm sitting there because I had to drive him over, because I'm not a person that stands there like, let's go on the travel team thing. I had to be there, so I'm sitting there, and, they're warming up, and, balls are ricocheting all over the place. They can't even make a layup. The other team comes in, and they got, headbands on, they got wristbands, they got matching bags, they're all marching in single file, there's 14 of them, they got 3 coaches, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not going to be pretty, So the warm-up begins, the formal warm-up, and our guys are going, and balls are literally hitting the rim and bouncing into the stands. They're just all over the place. And then this other team, I'm looking, they're doing a weave drill, they're, all this fancy stuff, they're doing behind the back passes, and I'm thinking, oh wow, this is going to be really something. Well, you can imagine how this game goes. With 2 minutes left in the game, this team is winning by 32 points, okay? Now, what happens after they score their 32nd point? The coach stands up and says, press, press! Now, some of you are probably looking and say, what does that mean? I don't follow basketball. Press means we're not even going to let this team get the ball out of bounds, okay? We're going to try to steal this ball out of bounds. Well, of course, with our team, that wasn't really hard. So, of course, they did steal the ball, and they scored another 2 points. So now it's 34 points they're winning by. And here's the sicker part of the whole thing. All of the peers jump up going, yeah! And I'm I'm thinking, I am in the Twilight Zone. These are Catholic schools playing each other. And I'm thinking, oh, so when we think that this is just a pro problem, this is a problem that is pervasive, through all of our culture, and we've got to be able to change it in some way. I will tell you that I've always looked at sport as a whole person. Each person that's in sport is a whole person. It's like John Paul II's understanding of the human person. Body, mind, and soul. In other words, we're all three of those things instantaneously at the same second. We might talk about them in pieces, but the reality is I'm all those things, you're all those things right at this very instant. And if we don't think of it in that way, we're going to miss something pretty serious. I'll give you an example, because some people say, well, what are you talking about here when you say body, mind, and spirit? You mean like after the game we're going to kneel down and pray, That's really great. I'm really happy for you if you kneel down after the game and pray. I mean, that's good. However, if during the game I'm poking your eyes out, trying to take out your knee, pulling your hair, spitting on you, and cursing at you, there's a bit of a disconnect there for me about the praying at the end of the game. So let me give you an example of how this works, because it actually works, and you can do all three things at the same exact time. Worked with a lot of NFL wide receivers. My body's falling apart now, but believe me, I used to have a good arm. I can throw it at kind of a high velocity. So I'm with this wide receiver. I won't tell you his name. He's running routes, and about the 8th route, he drops the ball. And when he drops the ball, he lets out a really bad word. He yells out the bomb, it's a big word, bad word. And I look at him and I said, what did you say? And he kind of looks back at me a little sheepishly. He said, well, I dropped the ball. I said, well, I know you dropped the ball, but I said, well, what did you say? And he said, well, I dropped the ball. I said, I know. I said, thank you, Jesus, right? He looks at me like I've hit him with a 2x4, and he said, well, why am I thanking Jesus? I dropped the ball. And this was a Christian athlete, and I said to him, and he's gone to many Sunday schools, I'm sure, he's done his Bible study. I said to him, aren't you thankful in all things? He said, yeah. He goes, I said, 1 Thessalonians 5:18, right? You're thankful in all things? He goes, yeah. I said, so thank you, Jesus, right? He goes, thank you, Jesus? I said, yeah, good, now come on back. Now, you may say, why did you do that? Just to say something holy or something good at the time? No, I'm going to tell you 2 reasons. First one is justice. It's due. We should be thankful in all things. Bang your head, thank you, Jesus. Win the lottery, thank you, Jesus. Some good, bad, and different, thank you, Jesus, in all things, and that's serious. And you train yourself in the small things. It's not when the crises happen. It's all through your life, the very smallest things. Drop a little coffee on your lap. What do you want to first say? Oh, thank you, Jesus. Right? I mean, you train yourself to respond this way. So gratitude, it's a virtue. It's the first. That's the first reason. Second reason, completely pragmatic. Has nothing to do with any kind of spirituality or anything else. If he's over there cursing and kicking the ground, what doesn't he know? Why he dropped the ball. And why is he kicking the ground and cursing? It's called pride. He's got to show me how upset he is because he doesn't drop balls. So I got to show you how really terrible this is, because I just don't do this. I'm so much better than this. But while he's doing that, he's missed that fraction of a second when you could actually know why you dropped the ball. And if you don't know why you did something, there's a really good chance you're going to do it again. So I asked him, I said, well, what happened? And of course, it was like a blackout. He's like, he didn't know. Well, I'll tell you what it was. He didn't snap his head around. Now, when I say snap his head around, maybe I'll just show you what I mean. If you're a wide receiver, and I see them do it still today, you think these guys are the best, right? They should have this stuff perfected. They should be unbelievable. Pro athletes have further to go than they've come. They just happen to be a little bit more talented than most people. They haven't even come close to perfecting their skills and talents. No matter how good you've seen them, they got so much more in them, it's ridiculous. But here's what they do. If I'm a receiver and you're one of you are the quarterback, if I come around and make a plant and I go like this, the whole time I was doing that, everything has blurred to begin with. Plus, it took me some amount of time to go like this. Okay? On the other hand, if I come up and I'm making an impulse cut and I snap my head around like that, and sometimes people think I'm like a tick, you okay? That's how fast you can turn your head. Like that. Like that. I know it looks strange, but I'll tell you what, you turn your head that fast, you see a ball 10 yards sooner. And if you see a ball 10 yards sooner, you have a much better chance of catching it. Because by the way, NFL wide receivers, they can catch. If they drop a ball, it's not because they can't catch, it's because they did something. So while he's kicking the ground and cursing, what doesn't he know? Why he dropped this ball. He doesn't know he didn't snap his head around. So I tell him, you didn't get your head around. And I tell him, do that. So he does that, goes out, maybe about 8, 9, 10 more balls. Guess what? And he drops the ball, right? And I see it. He's about to say it. He goes, and then he kind of turns and he looks at me and I go, and he goes, thank you, Jesus. I good. Come on, come back. Now tell me what happened. Well, now he tells me. He says, I didn't get my head around on that one either. And I said, you're exactly right, because that's what I saw. Well, by the end of the day, this guy, first of all, is hardly dropping any balls. And if he does, the very first thing he says is, thank you, Jesus, and he really means it. And he knows why he dropped the ball. So in all ways, physically, mentally, and spiritually, this athlete, this human being, improved. He was able to double the talents he was given in that moment. So it's not some separation of all these things. We don't have to think of them in compartments. They all work at the same time if we try to do what I'm describing. If we don't, then it stays kind of the way it is. So this idea of trying to convey this, and when people hear me talk about sport and virtue, I don't know if you do, but a lot of times people say to me, well, that sounds nice, but we got to be really good athletes, right? I mean, what are you looking for? Is it just some goody two-shoes out in the field or something? No, I'm looking for world-class athletes. I'm looking for world-class performance. If you're capable of performing at a world-class level, I think you have an obligation and duty to use all of that and be the world-class athlete. I was talking one year to the NFL Players Association. I said to all the players sitting there, I said, how many of you are trying to perfect the intellectual virtue of art? Yeah, they're looking at me like you are, right? They're like, what? Like, did you come in the right building or what? I said to you, how many of you are trying to perfect yourselves as football players? Whole room raises their hand. I said, that is, God bless you, the intellectual virtue of art. That's it. It's the right method of external production. If you are trying to perfect whatever it is you're doing, that's that virtue. But it's only one of them. And virtues do not live in isolation. Virtues work together. And if we don't understand that, and we don't make that part of what we do in sport, it's not going to happen. It's the way it works. So anyway, I won't even tell you how I came to write this book. I did not want to write this book. I had no time to write this book. I prayed for the gift of bilocation. God doesn't think I'm worthy of it. So my life is crazy. I mean, as you know, we have other big families here, 11, 10. Life is busy. And running a college is insane. Just a college president, I've never made up a job. I mean, I don't know where they came from. But I had no time to write this book. But enough circumstance happened that eventually the way they got me to do it was they said, this will help Belmont Abbey College if you do this. I said, tell me how. And they convinced me that it might open up an audience and might get people to know and hear about Belmont Abbey College that might not otherwise either have an interest or even know about it or haven't heard about it before. And all the proceeds from this book go to Belmont Abbey College. I get nothing from it. And by the way, St. Benedict Press, who's the publisher, was kind enough to also donate all of the proceeds from this book to Belmont Abbey College. So it really is a work of love, and that's why I did it. You'll be the judge of whether it has any merit if you have the time to read it. But I thought tonight what I tried to do is just give you a little bit of sort of an outline of it and share with you at least a few things that are in it that I hope will give you some insight. Again, I can't do justice to the whole thing tonight in just one talk, but hopefully I can give you enough that at least you leave here hopefully with something good to take with you, and maybe something that can work for you. Broadly speaking, I would tell you if you start reading the book, read it to the end, because the beginning is nothing like the end. I mean, it is a very different kind of book, and it goes through a lot of different types of things in this book. And so there's 3 sections, broadly speaking. The first one is preparing the mind to win. And what I meant by that is over the course of my life, I'm a psychologist as well, and when I worked with people as a psychologist early on, I really attribute this to the Holy Spirit, because I know nothing, I'm telling you. But I was always given little parables, little anecdotes, little stories that were so powerful that they almost instantaneously had effect on the person that I was talking to, like that I was doing counseling with or therapy with. And what I found over the years is that whether it's an athlete or one of us, a regular person in regular life, I try to pick out the ones that I found almost universal, that affect all of us and stop all of us from being able to double the talents that we have. And so the first 5 chapters of this book really go into that. The second kind of part of this book is on peak performance. It's making it a common occurrence. In other words, most times you have a peak performance, you only know you had it after it's gone. You don't know how you got it, you wish it came back, but you don't know when it's coming, you hope another one comes, but you'll just have to wait and see if it ever does, There are ways to make that happen. I'll just share a couple of those with you as I go. And then the last section of the book is playing with a passion that never ends. As you can get just by the tone of that, it's about the deeper stuff. It's about sacrifice, it's about why you do the things that you do and how you do them. So if you'll bear with me, I'll share a few of these with you. I'll kind of just go through an outline of the book. The first chapter is called All Work and No Play. And again, maybe I just amaze myself when I think of these thoughts, and maybe nobody else thinks they're amazing, but I find it remarkable thought to think this way. Every human being from the beginning of time has played. You know, you can't say that about a lot of stuff. You know, every human being has played. Now, that seems like an amazing thing to me. And then I began looking at it, and I began looking at, you'd be surprised in the Catholic Church, the number of saints that refer specifically to sport participation in some way. You know, St. Augustine, St. Francis de Sales, I mean, I could go through a whole host of them. But I'll just pick out Proverbs 8. Wisdom played before God in Proverbs 8, and this is the quote, I was God's delight day after day, playing before God all the time, playing in the world. In God's earth, my delight was with humankind. Again, kind of a profound thought if you think about it. Everybody plays. God's talking about play. You know, this play stuff is not some then time-out stuff. It's not, you know, and by the way, sport is the competitive form of play. So sport is play. It's not, they're not two separate things. Sport is play. But they're not these time-out things. They're not something over here that doesn't count, you know, doesn't have much value. Matter of fact, I would say to you that play is a lot like wisdom. First of all, it's done for its own sake. It's not done for some end. The other is that it is contemplation. It's like contemplation of the highest things. So play has some deeper meaning to us as human beings. And I would also say to you that very often, I'm sure many of you have done maybe pilgrimages and retreats, or you've seen artwork, or you've gone, has anybody been to Rome? Has anybody been to the Vatican Museum? Okay, I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, just one thing you could look at, you know, and not stop. And so I think we think of art. Art raises our eyes up and makes us think of God. We go into massive cathedrals like St. Peter's. I mean, wow, that's a league by itself. But you walk into these places, and you know, St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, wherever, you walk in and your eyes are lifted up. I mean, that's why they built them like that. They built them for us to look up and contemplate God in our lives. Well, sport. Nobody ever thinks of sport that way, but I'll tell you, I see sport that way. If anybody watched the London Olympics this past year, I'll just pick out one. It was the 800 meters. It was David Rhodesia running the 800 meters, and he broke the world record. He ran 1 minute and 40 seconds for the half mile. If you go and watch that, if you haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to watch it. It's beautiful. I mean, I am telling you, you see God. You think God when you see David Rhodesia running this half mile, because it's an incredible performance. And that's the whole point. It makes me think about the image and likeness of God. He made us this way. He made this incredible body able to do various things, and when you see it in sport, you're drawn to it. So I would like highlight, you know, films. You know, we watch all these unbelievable plays. You know, they seem unbelievable, but they happen. I guess they're not unbelievable. You know, they can happen, and we're drawn to them. But sometimes we attribute it, the reason we're drawn to them is just we like the team or we like the player or something. No, you're drawn to that because there's something about it. There's something higher about it than just the sport that you're looking at. As a matter of fact, we are so wired to play that we will even pay to watch other people do it. I mean, think about that. Isn't that wild? We love playing so much that we'll go all the way down, park our car, walk to a stadium, go in, sit in a seat, and say, yep, they're playing. I mean, that's like remarkable. And we'll pay a lot of money to do it. Matter of fact, look at the money that's generated. I'm back to the money thing that's generated. Why is so much money generated by sport? Because we love it. We want to do it. We want to be part of it. It's something special about it. But again, if it's taken the wrong way or it's corrupted in some ways, it has the ability to do the opposite. It can be a vehicle for vice as much as for virtue. St. Francis de Sales talks about it, and he says it can be a problem when it becomes an occupation. So he's saying these things are good. Sport is good. But if it takes up too much of your attention and time and energy, it becomes an occupation. Now, if you're a pro football player, I guess that is your occupation, but that's not our occupation, so we got to be careful how we approach it. The second chapter is running on empty. And I've asked many people, I said, you know, what's the most motivating thing in the world to anybody? And most people, you know, I hear the big three usually, you know, money, you know, somebody yells out money, you know, power, fame, I mean, those are usually the big ones. And I said, no, it's none of those things. The most motivating thing in the world to any human being is love. And they think, oh my God, it's a love talk. You know, I thought this was a sports talk. He's doing a love thing. But love is the most motivating thing. What can I tell you? I mean, it's the truth. It's real. And somebody said, well, I don't know about that. Okay, let's do a test. I'll give you $1 billion. I'll make you president. I don't know if you want to be, but I'll make you president. But the only stipulation to the deal is you got to go live on a deserted island for the rest of your life. Anybody going to go take that deal? A couple of tired parents here in the front row that might like a couple of weeks on the island, maybe, you know, but nobody's going to go there forever. Why? Think about it. If money, power, fame were truly the most motivating things, you'd take the deal. But they're not, of course. What's missing on the island are people, and the potential for relationships, and the potential for love. That's why we don't want to go there under that conditions. As a matter of fact, very often the other three things are often being used to try to get the love thing. Usually it doesn't work, you know. But a lot of times you see it. You see people trying to do that. They don't know. They're trying the best they can. Saint Thomas Aquinas. I mean, am I right? Saint Thomas Aquinas. I know I'll be corrected here from mom. I believe it's Saint Thomas Aquinas who talked about those four things. They said, you know, they have the potential to become addictions because nothing will fill you up. If you don't have this first, nothing else in this world can fill you up properly, which means you'll never have enough money. I mean, I worked with a pro player who 1 year, because of taxes or something, was only going to make $800,000. He normally made $1 million. He was only making $800,000, and he was like crying to me. I don't know how I'm going to make it through the year. And I'm thinking, you got 2 houses, you got like 4 cars, you got like boats. I mean, you're not going to be able to make it through the year on $800,000? I mean, you know. But you know what? Take any one of us, whatever you make. We all tend to live pretty close to the edge, you know. We all kind of use what we have right up to the edge, and if suddenly we couldn't have that, we'd be like, oh, that's a real hardship. Because we all tend to do that to some degree. It's easy to point out those people, kind of in the extremes, but I don't know. I think we're sort of right there with them. So, this motivating thing, love being most motivating. I'm going to pick something out for you here that every athlete I've ever worked with, this applied. It's just a matter of degree. It wasn't did it exist. And by the way, if you didn't play sports, I bet when I describe this to you, some of you are going to sit there and say, yep, that's true. That's like me. Yeah, I got some of that, what I'm about to describe, okay? I'm going to take you at 1 year old. No particular reason, I'm just going to take one. At 1 year old, all you know is mom and dad are perfect. They're the whole universe. But that's all you know. I mean, you know, you're not having a big dialogue in your head at one, probably. Or with anybody else, for that matter. Now, I'm not saying it was this way. But if mom and dad don't love you in a way you get it, I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying if you don't get that feeling or that thought that they do in some way, you tend to think, must be me. Because here's mom and dad, they're perfect, the whole universe, must be me. Now athletes, there's a lot of strategies. Athletes adopt a certain strategy. And the one they take is they start to take things on. And when they take something on, they get a clap on the back. When they get that clap on the back, they go, ooh, I like that. That's a real good feeling. That's like that love feeling. They don't say the word, but that's what it is. I like the clap on the back because that feels good. That's like that love thing. So I'll give you an example. Let's say when you first went to school, nobody had a clue how you're going to do. And you come home and your first program, you got all D's on there. Oof, mom and dad look at that and say, oh my gosh, we got a problem here. So they talk to you, they make sure everything's going okay, you know, and everything else, and make sure you're studying, and you go through all this thing, and you do some nice changes and improve this and that. Next report card, you come home, all D's. Okay, this is really serious. You start getting mentors and tutors, and they can see you're working. You're not goofing off. You really are trying. I mean, you're putting the time in. You're working. You're going, getting the tutoring. You're doing everything you can, and you come home again, and it's all D's. I mean, at some point, all they can say is, you know, good job, keep trying. I mean, you know, what else can they say? You're doing everything you can. They're doing everything they can. I mean, maybe this is just where we are. I mean, we wouldn't give up, but this is where we are. On the other hand, let's say when you came home from school the first time, you had all A's, maybe a B, you know, A's and B's. What does everybody say? Oh, look at this, right? Aha, big clap on the back, this is good. I like that feeling, that's really good. Now, at a certain point though, let's say you came home and there's a C on that report card. You think nobody's going to say anything to you about that? Somebody's going to say, whoa, what happened here? And you're going to say, well, you know, and you're going to have to give a reason why you got to C. Why? Because people have come to expect that you're an A student, that you're a B student. And that's what they expect you to do. So, matter of fact, now just to get A's and B's, you don't even get much of a clap on the back anymore. You're supposed to get that. Oh, this is not a good feeling. But you know what? We're really adaptable. I got a free hand. I can juggle the school stuff. I certainly can't drop out. I got in trouble for a C, so I guess I'll have to keep it going. So, okay, so I keep the school thing going, but I got a free hand. Not really, but kind of. I got a free hand over here, so I'm going to take on something new. Oh, athletics. I never did that before, you know. So I go out for athletics, and all of a sudden you go out and people say, wow, you're really good. You're fast. You're strong. Man, look at her go. Like, wow, what a shot, right? Oh, this is good. I'm back. Okay, I got a new clap on the back. It's going to work. You know, feeling good. Everything's going fine. At some point, though, if you go out and don't perform in whatever you were doing as well as you had been, what happens? People say, what happened? And then you feel like you got to give an excuse. Well, you know, I don't know. I just, you know, I was kind of off today. I didn't sleep a lot. You know, I mean, now you're giving excuses to why you didn't perform at the level that people came to expect you to. So now what happens? You're not going to get such a clap on the back. Now, I never understood where coaches got that 110% thing from. You know, there's no secret slice under the pie. You know, there's only 100% of a pie. And so you don't have the extra 10. I don't know where they got that from. So you only have 100 to give. And at some point, you're juggling. You got all these things you've been maintaining now, and you only have 100% to maintain them with. And at some point, you reach a stage where you don't have 1% left to put into anything new to get a new clap on the back. And when you get to that point, you get a really strong feeling, and it's usually a bad one. It's going to be anger, frustration, depression, something. You're not going to like it. But basically what's happened is being good enough has gotten tied to being loved. They have nothing to do with each other, but we've tied them together. And athletes in particular tend to do it. Their performance is who they are and how they feel. They perform well, they feel good. Perform bad, they feel bad. Because they've tied these two things together and they have nothing to do with each other. It's an important insight to have. Leads also to something else, and there's another chapter of the book, The Pressure's On. Can you hand me pressure? I mean, people here might even tell me, well, I'm under a lot of pressure. Really? Like, where is it? You know, do you have it with you or what? You know? It's all perception. It's how you look at things. There's no such thing. It's how you looked at it. That's what you're calling pressure. And it's words. How many people in here, raise your hand now, be honest, have said, I have to go to work? Ever in your life? Has anybody ever said, I have to go to work today? Yeah. I mean, unless you don't work at all, you know. I mean, we've all said that kind of thing. But you know what? No, you don't. You don't have to go to work. And I've heard people say, what do you mean I don't have to go to work? How am I going to pay for our food and our clothing and our house and whatever? I said, well, you don't have to have those things. I mean, there's consequences to every action, every decision you make in life. I mean, you don't have to have those. Who said you have to have all that stuff? So what you're going to determine actually is, I want to go to work. Because I want to have these things. I want to be able to have a certain lifestyle. I want to be able to get these things for my family or whatever it might be. You want those. Now you may say, am I just playing around with words? It's just semantics. No, this is like real stuff. You keep saying have to, must, and shoulds. That is anxiety and pressure. Think about when people are nervous. Just listen to their words. It's not that they want to go do this. They feel like they have to go do this. And they're being forced. Boy, this is pretty good. Is there like a public house in the back of here? I think there is, right? So let me jump to the second part of the book, which is on mastering or making peak performance a common occurrence. In chapter 6, the title of chapter 6 is Walking on Water. Okay? And that walking on water is actually Matthew 14:22 to 33. Now this is going to be a test, everybody. Can you focus on what I'm saying? Go for it. I mean, I'm going to actually have it's coming up. The timing was just a fraction off for that to happen, because I'm about to do some sports performance things with you on focus. So I didn't quite get there. They started sooner than I thought. But in the beginning of this chapter, what I have in there is St. Peter walking on the water. And I say it's one of the greatest peak performances of all time. It just didn't finish it. And people say to me immediately, well, wait a second, that's not a peak performance, that's a miracle. Sure, it's a miracle, but let's examine it for a minute. Peter was in the boat, right? He sees Christ coming across, as did the other apostles, and they were all kind of fearful, thought it's a ghost or something. And what does Peter say? If it's really you, tell me to come to you. What does Jesus says, come. So what does Peter do? He doesn't have to get out of the boat. He has his free will intact. What does he do? He gets out of the boat. He actually climbs out of the boat and starts walking on the water. That is unbelievable. That's amazing. But what happens? If he had remained focused on Christ the entire time, he would have reached them. But what happened? He began to look around. He began to become distracted by all the water and the wind and the waves, and he became fearful and anxious, and he began to sink. And he calls out, save me. So the point about this then is, yes, it's a miracle. Christ provided the grace for him to be able to walk on the water. However, he didn't force Peter to walk on the water. He didn't force him, otherwise he would have reached him. He gave Peter his free will. And if Peter had focused on Christ the entire time, he would have gotten there. There's a lesson there about any kind of performance in life. What are we focused on? What do we maintain our focus on? That's going to determine ultimately how we do perform. So these peak performances, they happen all the time. And we think, oh no, they're just these rare circumstances. So, I'll give you examples. There's these like yogis and lamas in Tibet, okay? And they can slow their heart rates and respiration down to literally almost nothing. I mean, like 10 beats. Some as low as been registered, I think 3 beats a minute, their heart rate. I mean, that's remarkable. But people will say to me, yeah, but these are like some guys on a mountain in Tibet, I'm not going to go to Tibet for 50 years and learn to do that, so, okay. Jeremy Schill. Jeremy Schill is 9 years old, and he weighs 65 pounds. Okay? 9 years old, weighs 65 pounds. His dad is in the garage working on a car that is estimated to weigh 4,800 pounds. It's up on 4 jacks. He's underneath it working on it, and the car shifts and falls off the jacks onto the father who's completely under the car. The 9-year-old, who weighs 69 pounds, goes over to the front of the car and lifts it up enough so his father can breathe. Now people say to me, yeah, but Bill, that's like an emergency situation. I mean, there must be like adrenaline flowing or something there. It's a 9-year-old, 65 pounds. He's not taking human growth hormone. He's not taking steroids. He never lifted a weight in his life, and he just lifted up a 4,800-pound car. Oh, okay, it's an emergency. Okay, give you another one then. That's not an emergency. Bob Beamon, 1968 Olympics, breaks the world record in the long jump by almost 2 feet, 22 inches. That's phenomenal. He wasn't under any threat of pressure. I mean, nobody was coming after him. But people say, yeah, but that was kind of a world-class athlete. He just, he trained and it just all clicked, at that moment. There's a guy, Pippin Ferraro. He's one of these free divers, deep divers, with no apparatus at all. He can go down, no apparatus, no tank, nothing. He can go down 560 feet. And he can stay underwater for almost 10 minutes. I mean, they said his heart rate slows down to about 10 or 15 beats a minute. I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? But you'd all say to me, yeah, but Bill, you're telling me about emergencies and holy men on mountains and like, these world-class performers and so forth. What does that have to do with me? Like, does that, I'm a regular person. I'll give you an example. Joseph, we were up in Pennsylvania. On our garage wall, we had this pegboard, has all the holes in it. I'm working inside the car. Joseph is like 3 years old. And for some reason, I was like leaning the car and I leaned up the windshield to make sure he's not going to kill himself with something in the garage. And I look and he's staring at the wall. And at first I think there's something wrong with him, I mean, he's just kind of like staring at the wall, I think, it's a 3-year-old, why is he staring at the wall? And then I noticed in his hand, he's got a little artist paintbrush. And I'm still watching him and he's staring at the wall and suddenly he picks up his hand and he throws it. And it spins through the air and it sticks right in the hole. No. I am telling you, the paintbrush, when I went over to take it out, I almost couldn't get out of the hole. It was wedged in so tight. Now I'm thinking, okay, maybe this isn't so unusual. Maybe this happens all the time, So I am like an idiot trying to throw this thing into the wall. It's not going in. I get up there like a spear from 2 inches away, and I'm trying to get it going in that hole. It's not going in the hole. But he did it. And this is the thing about peak performances. They happen. We're not making this up. We're not theorizing about this. This actually really occurred. It means it was possible. The problem typically is the re-performing it. How do you do these things over and over? That's the challenge to peak performances. So I'll give you an example why things happen the way they do. Let's say, I'll just take basketball as an example, okay? You're about to go to the free throw line. You've just been fouled. We'll make it exciting. There's 30 seconds left in the game. Your team's down by 1. You're going to the foul line. And right now, let's think about this. For you to hit this foul shot, Believe it or not, there's only two things that can help you right now. Seeing the rim and feeling your body move. Those are the only two things that can possibly help you at this present moment. So you have 100% to give. Remember, there's no 10 extra percent, right? There's just 100. You have 100% that you can put into seeing the rim, feeling your body. That's the best foul shot you can possibly take in this instant. But think what happens. As you're walking to the foul line, the coach yells out to you what you need to do after the shot's over. What does that have to do with seeing the rim, feeling your body? Nothing. Take away 10% for that thought. Mom and dad are up in the stands with the video camera. I mean, what does that have to do with seeing the rim, feeling your body? Nothing. Take away 15% for that thought. As you come up to the line, the guy is trash talking to you from the other team about how terrible you are and so forth. What does that have to do with seeing the rim, feeling your body? Take away 20% for that thought. Maybe you missed your last 2 free throws that were up there. Ooh, that's really hard. Okay, so take away 30% for that thought. Do you get where I'm going? You had 100% to give. You believe you're giving it. Your intent is, I want to give my 100%. But you just gave up like 70% to stuff that has nothing to do with seeing the rim, feeling your body, which is actually what puts the ball in the basket. So you're standing there with maybe 25 or 30% of your ability on the actual thing that helps you put the ball in. Which means, you know what? You got a good chance you're going to miss. And when you do, for some of us, what do we tend to say? I knew it. I knew I was going to miss that shot. What do you mean you knew you were going to miss that shot? It's almost like you set it up to miss the shot. You said, how little can I focus on what I'm doing and still do it? I mean, that's basically what that was setting out for yourself. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. Okay. Do you see the speaker up there? There is I don't even know what that name is. What is it? PV. PV, okay. There is the P at the beginning, right? And there is a V at the end. And you can see the V is kind of sticking up into the air and the P is going across. Can you tell me, are they actually touching or is there a little space between them? Okay, were you just thinking about work?
No.
Were you thinking about dinner? Were you thinking about tomorrow?
No.
Were you thinking about next week? No. For a fraction of a second, you're like, what is he talking about? Your whole mind, body, and spirit. Matter of fact, you didn't even know you were in this room for a fraction of a second. I'm serious. You didn't have any awareness you're in this room because everything was up there in that little P and V. You're trying to say, I don't know, I can't even see that from here, That's the whole point of focus. The more absorbed you become in detail, the more focused you are. The problem we have is if every day for the next year we came in here and looked at that 1,000 times each day, boy, it gets pretty hard after a few days and keep looking at that. You're like, yeah, okay, I've seen it. I've seen it. Yeah, that's it. You've seen it. You're not focused anymore. You've stopped focusing. And that's what happens to people who play golf or football or anything else. You've seen a million of them. And what ends up happening is you stop focusing on the details. So, I'll give you another example. I'm going to ask you, when I say go, I want you to snap your finger as fast as you can for me, okay? Everybody ready? Go. One time. I always get the Spanish thing going there. Okay. Now, one time and really fast. Now, you know what I mean, right? Really fast? Ready? Go. Okay, that was definitely faster. However, it's been a long day, and you're sitting down for a while, and you're probably like, a little lethargic, okay? I want you to kind of wake yourself up, pinch your cheeks, okay? Okay? When I say the word, as fast as you can. Ready? Go. I love proofs, because then you don't have to believe me, right? You heard it. Was that faster?
Yes.
Okay, now wait. You were listening for the whole go to come out?
Right.
When you hear the G sound, I want you to snap your finger. Ready? Go. Now, would you admit that's the fastest we got today, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't you snap it that fast the first time? I asked you. I said, snap your finger as fast as you can for me. Well, it could be not focused. It could be, I didn't know you meant that fast. You might say, I didn't even know I could snap my finger that fast. Okay? I never even tried to snap my finger that fast before. Okay?
Disqualified.
That's right. Yeah, I have a false start, I mean, get 2 false starts. But you get my point. So think of how often we criticize others, or we say, what's your problem? Like, why aren't you getting that? I just asked you to do a very simple thing. I just asked you to snap your finger one time as fast as you can. And boy, it took a lot of times and cajoling there to get you to really snap your finger as fast as you can snap it. And that's just a finger snap. I mean, nothing complicated. And think of the complex things that we ask people to do around us sometimes. Anybody play golf in here? A few? Okay. I'll give you 2 examples where I learned something. I've been working with a pro golfer on the LPGA Tour for a while, and I'd been working with her maybe about 2.5 years or so, and so we'd been, we kind of understood each other in certain language. We're at a tournament. Fila, F-I-L-A, the clothing apparel company, was a sponsor. There was a 100-yard board out there that said Fila on it. And I said to her, "What's your target?" Because she was just going to warm up, so she took her first club out. She said, the F in Fila. Hits her first ball, it lands about 10 feet to the right of the sign. I can tell you on tour, anybody that would hit a ball 10 feet to the right of a 100-yard sign out there would have been completely happy with that as a warm-up shot. But of course she knew this was coming, and I said to her, "Is that what you wanted?" She said, "No, I wanted the F." I said, "Well, you think you feel the difference between them?" Yeah, I think I can. I mean, she knew this was all coming, right? So she hits the next one, and it literally goes over the A in Fila. Now, again, you might say, "Wow, that's really impressive, isn't it?" I said, but of course, you know what I said to her, right? That's not what you wanted. You told me you wanted the F, and you thought you could hit it. What was the difference? 4 shots from there, she actually hits the F on a 100-yard board. Now, 2 things amazing about that to me. One is that she could do it. I mean, that's kind of a remarkable thing, to be able to hit a golf ball on a little F that's this big at 100 yards away. That's pretty amazing. But here's the most amazing thing. She would have never tried it. That's what I learned. She had, just like everybody else, certain standards, certain expectations to say, that's good enough. 10 feet, it's good enough. Instead of, what am I actually really capable of? So instead of standing there comparing myself to others, I should be asking, what is it that I'm actually able to do, rather than saying, hey, I'm better than you. What are you doing with what you've been given? I'll give you just one other quick one here. Well, I won't, because of time. I'm going to keep moving here. 2 thoughts I'm going to put together for you, again, on the peak performance thing. I've been talking about this performing in the present moment. That's what athletes do. They put the 100% into the task at hand right now. That's as good as it gets. Doesn't mean they can't get better in the future with training, but right now, that's the best that's as good as it can get, right? Another thought. All of time is present to God. He's got no past, and he has no future. All of time is present to God. So, to the degree I remain in the present moment is the degree I remain in perfect union with God. If I ruminate about the past or I become anxious about the future, I've left him. Because he's in the present moment and I'm not. Put the 2 together. When you're an athlete or anything that you may be doing in life and you're completely absorbed, giving your 100%, completely focused on the task at hand in that present moment, you're in perfect union with God. So this trivial thing of sport that you think it might be, when we do it a certain way, we actually connect ourselves to God in a very special way. And that could be painting, that could be carpentry, that could be sport, that could be anything that you're doing in your life. I'm going to jump to the last part here, which is playing with a passion that never ends. I would say to you first that, from my view, to change this culture we're talking about, coaches need to be teachers and mentors first. If they're not, we have no hope of changing any of this. Because they're the ones who recruit athletes, those are the ones that train athletes. If they don't have it, I've often said you can't give what you don't have. And so that's on us to try to make sure that's what's happening when we look at whether it's a youth, or it's a high school, or it's a college, or whatever it might be. That should be our expectation. That should be what we're demanding. Even pro level, that's what we should be demanding. I'll give you an example of one. Some of you may have heard his name before, Amos Alonzo Stagg. To give you an idea, he was only 5'6", 150 pounds. He was an All-American end in football. He was the #1 collegiate pitcher. He played in the very first basketball game ever played. As a coach, he won national championships, 7 Big Ten titles. He's in the Hall of Fame for basketball and football. And I love this one quote. After one particularly fine season from a win-loss perspective, a reporter asked Coach Stagg, "Coach, was this your most successful team?" Coach Stagg replied, "I won't know that for another 20 or 30 years." Great answer. I mean, the truth. That is the truth. In other words, what did I do? What seeds did I plant? What kind of formation did I provide? I'll know it, because I'm going to see it in the future. I may not all see it right now, but I'm seeing what's being cultivated here, what's going to come. I'm going to read you a letter, this is the last part about Coach, because I think this letter will tell you everything you need to know about Alonzo Stagg. He wrote this to his son. It was June 23rd, 1900. To my son, you're only a little fellow now, a trifle over 14 months old, but I have loved you so dearly since you came that it has been on my mind to write you a letter in the event of my being taken away at any time before I had a chance to tell you many things which you need to know. Your father wants his boy, first of all, to love, protect, and care for his mother, giving to her the same kind of measure of love and devotion which she has given to you. Second, your father wants his boy to be sincere, honest, upright, and be your truest self always. Hate dishonesty and trickery, no matter how big and how great the thing desired may be. Third, your father wants you to have a proper independence of thought. Think matters out for yourself, always where it relates to your own conduct, and act honestly afterwards. Fourth, your father wants you to be an American in democracy. Treat everybody with courtesy and as your equal until he proves his unworthiness to be so treated. The man and the soul are what counts, and not wealth, not family, not appearance. Fifth, your father wants you to abhor evil. No curiosity, no imagination, no conversation, no story, no reading, which suggests impurity of life is worthy of your thought or attention, and I beg you never to yield for an instant, but turn your thought to something good and helpful. Sixth, train yourself to be a master of yourself, of your thought and imagination and temper and passion and appetite of your body. Allow no thought, nor imagination, nor passion, nor appetite to injure your mind or body. Your father has never used intoxicating liquors, nor tobacco, nor profane language. He wants his boy to be like him in this regard. Seventh, your father wants his boy enthusiastic and earnest in all of his interests, his sports, his studies, his work. He wants him always to keep an active, actual participation in each so long as he lives. It is my judgment that one's life is most healthy and most successful when lived on such a basis. Eighth and finally, your father wants his son to love God as he is revealed to him, which after all will be the revelation of all that I have said and left unsaid of good to you, my precious boy. Affectionately, your father, Amos Alonzo Stagg. How would you like to have him coach your children, or you, or your grandchildren, or whatever it might be? Wow. I mean, that is the kind of person you want to be associated with in life, and that is what sport can do, and that's what sport can be. I'm coming to the end here, so hopefully you can bear with me just a few more moments. Chapter 9 is about playing hurt. I use that because that's a sports kind of way of thinking about things. But I guess the way I think about this is that world-class performance in sport, business, everyday life, it comes at a cost. It's going to require a sacrifice. Another word for sacrifice is love. But it's going to require a sacrifice of some kind. And I don't know if any of you have read C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, one of my favorites. There's this little section in there, and I like this one little phrase. It's a small little dialogue between, there's a kind of a soul who's trying in a way to get to heaven, who's still clinging on to himself and his vices and so forth, and having trouble letting go. And it's kind of described as a lizard. There's this lizard on his neck and around his back. And there's an angel there. And he says, "Get back, you're burning me. How can I tell you to kill it? You'd kill me if you did." "It is not so." "Well, you're hurting me now." "I never said it wouldn't hurt you. I said it wouldn't kill you." Subtle difference. In other words, sometimes we're thinking in life, because we're told in this culture, there should never be any discomfort, there should never be any pain, there should never be any hurt, there should never be anything. I don't know. I went back to the most motivating thing, love. What is love? Love is giving up something you had kept for yourself. In other words, it's some level of discomfort, if you want to describe it that way. It is a sacrifice. You are giving up something that you could have kept for yourself. So there's some discomfort, there's some pain involved in love and sacrifice. I don't know how this would happen. Imagine right now, get this in your mind, somebody that you love so much that you would die for them, okay? You got somebody you love so much that you would die for them. I don't know how it happens, but they're up here right now on this podium. And suddenly this podium bursts into flames. Are you going to come up here and rescue them? I'm not feeling very enthusiastic right now about this person. I'm hearing Jack. Jack is coming. I mean, would that surprise you that Jack would be the first one up here? He'd be up here rescuing your friend, you know, where that is. Is it a yes?
Yes.
Okay. But I tell you, when you do it, your wrists are going to get burned right down to the bone. You still going to do it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I pull out a flamethrower. I burn your wrist right down to the bone. Same burn, same pain. You're going to go nuts. You're either going to roll on the ground, storm up here and attack me, run out to the street. Same burn, same pain. One you can take and one you can't take. Pain without a purpose is intolerable to human beings. If you don't have a strong enough purpose, you can't take it, and you won't take it, which in the end will cause you even more pain. So I'll conclude with this, my 3 clues about life. I'm not a theologian, I have no Vatican approval, so this is my basic 3 clues. First one is, God exists. Even the New York Times, I think, or New York Magazine did a survey, I think it found like 96, 97, 98% of Americans believe in a higher being, so most people are on board, at least with that concept, that God exists. But if God exists, then there must be some relationship between me and God. Whether I do anything about it or not, if He exists, He exists. I mean, whether I do anything about it or not doesn't change whether He exists. So there's got to be some relationship, there's got to be some connection between me and God. Second clue, I've only been given one thing. You've only been given one thing. Everything can be taken away from you in a fraction of a second. Within an instant, you could lose your family. You could lose your house. You could lose your car. You could lose your legs. Boom, gone. The only thing you're left with is how you're going to deal with it. Your free will. And I used to wonder, why did God give us this free will thing? Like, what's so important about that? Like, why do we have that? Well, if I told you right now that in a moment I have somebody coming into this room and I'm paying them $5,000 a day to say they love you. Okay? Now they walk into the room, they look you right in the eye, and they say, I love you. Yeah, I hear the chuckles. It's like, yeah, right you do. I know you're being paid $5,000 a day to say that, right? It doesn't mean anything. You feel like, hey, it's being compelled in a sense by this $5,000 to say it. Now, what if God walked into this room right now? Anybody gonna leave this room? I'm not leaving this room if God walks into this room. God looks at you and says, do you love me? What are you gonna say? Yes. Who's gonna say no? I've heard people say, well, what about the atheist? I said, the atheist thing's over. God's in the room. So, what is the atheist going to say at this point? Probably yes. I'm sorry. I missed. I'm back, though. I'm with you. So this reason for free will is so that we can have true love. Without free will, we can't love. That's why we have it. That's why He gave it to us. Third and final clue. Don't want to be morbid, but we're all going to die. So give me an age. And by the way, I'm glad I'm a group that looks a little more my age, because I've gone to some places, like high schools and other places, where I hear like 35, I think I'm dead. I'm not alive anymore. So being very optimistic, give me an age, let me hear just a couple. I hear 90.
73.
73. I heard a 1. Did I hear 105? I mean, we'll go with 100. We'll make a nice round number. Okay, we'll go with 100. Now, I'm sorry to do this to you, but in your mind, I want you to think of the worst possible pain you could imagine. I'm sorry. Just get something. Okay? You got it? You don't tell anybody what it is. Okay, you got it? Okay. Now, with a movement of your hand, show me a second. Let me see. Like, move your hand a second. Let me see. Go. Let me see half a second. Let me see 100th of a second. Let me see 1,000,000th of a second. I like that some people are still trying, Let's be ridiculous. How about 1,000,000th of a second? I see somebody back there trying. Yeah, they're going to get that 1,000,000th. Let's make it 1,000,000th. Let's make it ridiculous. Now, if that pain you just imagined would come and go in 1,000,000th of a second, and there'd be absolutely no after effect at all, could you take it?
Yes. Sure.
You wouldn't even know you had it, right? But let's go back to the age thing for a second. You said you might live to 100 years. How long is 100 years in terms of all of eternity? It's faster than 1,000,000th of a second. And you just told me you could take the worst pain in the world for 1,000,000th of a second. That is your life. God has put you here, and it's embarrassing for me. He's asking us one question. Do you love me? And He's put us here in His mercy for the shortest period of time possible. And He says, do you love me? And what do we say? Today was so hard. I couldn't find a parking space. I dropped the coffee on my lap. This happened, that happened. This isn't going right, I mean, we're like insane. I mean, there's something wrong with us. Can you imagine going home to anybody tonight and saying, can you love me for 1,000,000th of a second? I mean, they think you're crazy. And yet God, His mercy, says, I gave you free will because I want you to choose me. I don't want to force you to do this. And I'm going to put you here in my mercy for the shortest period of time to answer that one question. And we can all give the lip service. We can all say yes. And like we said, watch the room, we're all going to say yes. How do you know people? The way I know people is I watch them. I hope their words match what they say, but in the end, I watch them, and then I know, who they really are. So God puts each of us down in our own places in life, with our own families, our own issues, our own sacrifices, our own money, whatever it is, and He says, okay, I'm going to provide opportunity for sacrifice in your life. And that's the question then. How do I respond to that sacrifice that He's put in my life? And if I take it on and I accept it and I do the best I can in it, I've said yes to Him. If I say no, I don't want anything to do with that, I've basically said no. That's why Jack and all of you who are out there defending life, you've said yes. You've said yes. You haven't just said, well, yeah, I'll sign a petition. You actually go do things. I know you by what you do, not by what you've said. That's the key to life. That's the whole point. And so this is sport too. I'm doing sport. That's what I'm called to at this moment. I have the same thing being asked of me. What kind of sacrifice am I making within it, and why am I doing it? Am I doing it for the higher reason, or am I doing it for some base reason like money, power, or fame? That's not the right reason to be doing it. And I'll leave you with this. My favorite quote about sport goes like this. Sport, properly directed, develops character, makes a man courageous, a generous loser, and a gracious victor. It refines the senses, gives intellectual penetration, and steels the will to endurance. It is not merely a physical development then. Sport, rightly understood, is an occupation of the whole man. And while perfecting the body as an instrument of the mind, it also makes the mind itself a more refined instrument for the search and communication of truth, and helps man to achieve that end to which all others must be subservient, the service and praise of his Creator. That is the greatest quote I've ever heard on sport. It takes it from this generic thing and raises it to the very highest level. And that quote is by Pope Pius XII, an address he gave called Sport at the Service of the Spirit, written in 1945. So with that, I'm going to stop. I hope that if you have more interest in this, that you would look at the book. There's a website that I put together called lessthanaminuteToGo.com. There's very short videos on there that cover a lot of these kinds of sport performance-related things, and I hope that'll be of some value to you. If you do get the book and look at it, I would greatly appreciate it if you go on Amazon and do a little book review of some kind once you have a chance to read it. So with that, I will stop, and you've been very patient, so thank you, and God bless you.